Hey y'all, I'm Jemima. And yeah, I'm really pleased to be in Porto. The weather is lovely. Let's talk about web components. So, I am a self taught front end developer and school taught systems engineer from Lagos, Nigeria. And I currently work for a company called We Make Websites in London. A free sticker to whoever can guess what my company does. And you can find me online anywhere at Jemima Abu. So that's Twitter, LinkedIn, Medium, GitHub. So let's get into it. Web components, what are they? So when I got into web design, we used to build websites with, well, I used to build websites with HTML and CSS, and I really liked it. I thought it was really cool that you could write text and then it becomes like this really pretty image on the screen. And then a couple of years later, I got into React. And I was like, what the heck is this? What happened to the simple text we used to write? Because now I had these things called builds and class components and states, and it was all very complicated to me. So with HTML and CSS, I had a lot of simplicity in how I was building websites, but there was a lot of redundancy in it because I build my portfolio website using HTML and CSS. If I want to add a new blog or article or talk, I have to copy and paste and edit the text. And that is the one benefit that I really liked that React offered. It had a lot of reusability, but then I didn't like the build aspect of it. And that's where web components come into place. Web components are a suite of technologies that allow you to build reusable HTML elements. So they take all the simplicity of HTML and CSS and they combine it with the reusability of React components. So it's this very fun, very nice little best of both worlds mix. And how they work, basically, like we said, is web components are a set of technologies. So what that means is that they're a combination of different systems. The first one is the custom elements API. Custom elements is an API with JavaScript that allows you to define new custom elements. So you can create your own tags. The same way you would have a button component in React, you can have a button component built using the custom elements API. And then we have the shadow DOM, which sounds very cool and I like it. The shadow DOM is what allows you to encapsulate elements from the main page. So this is what allows you to create components that are not dependent on the rest of the components in the page. So with regard to things like styling with CSS or functionality with JavaScript, once you put them in the shadow DOM, they're not affected by what happens on the rest of the stage. Not stage, page. I'm on the stage. And then we have the HTML templates. HTML templates are how you actually render these custom elements with HTML markup. So we're going to have a little demo, work through it, build a few web components, and we'll have fun. So this is the kind of thing I would have on my blog page. It's just simple post, title, and text and dates. So if I was building this with HTML, it would look something like this. Damn, completely forgot that part. What is the Wi-Fi password? What's the Wi-Fi password? Thanks. Developer. Do, 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 do. Dun, dun. It works. Awesome sauce. So yes, we have Wi-Fi connection. I will just create a new pen. Okay, so if I wanted to build a simple HTML page, let's say I have my div and I will call this class post container. So I want this to be the entire post. Let's close that. And then I will create my div post class. Let's give this a title. And let's give this some text. And let's give this the date. What's today's date? 25th? 28th? Jesus. Wow, okay. Well, April is over. That's fun. Okay, so yeah, this would be like a simple thing I would create, and then we can put some styling here. I don't know, 250. And padding 1 rem. Let's see, font size 1.25 rem. That's not how I spell that. And yeah, let's give it a border. 1px solid black. Give it a border radius to make it pretty. 0.25 here. No, that's not enough. 0.5. No, one. Excellent. This is the important developer part. So yes, this is basically how you would build a post with HTML. Now, if I wanted to create multiple posts, it would involve me basically copying and pasting all of this. So pretty much like that. Where is it? There it is. Okay. I'll make this a flex container. Let's see. Display flex and give it a gap of 1 year. There we go. So yeah, this is pretty much what creating a post with regular HTML would look like. Like you can see, it's a lot of copying and pasting, and this is just more of the basic parts. So if I wanted something more complicated, if I had different text, if I wanted to automatically add the date, for example, these are all things I would have to do manually, and it's really stressful. So with my blog post, what I do right now when I'm using custom JavaScript is that I create my posts as an object, and then I render them on the page using JavaScript. So the concept behind that would be basically targeting, let's get this. So I would target my post container. This would be document.query selector and post container. Yep. And then I would take all the content I wanted to create into an array, and I would call that array posts, and it would basically be an array of objects. And in the object, I could have title and content, and that would be lorem ipsum, and dates would be, I guess, like new date, whatever. So this is the kind of, like, this is pretty much what I would do if I wanted to create this post in JavaScript. And then when I, hold on, I have an error somewhere. What did I do? Const date equals to new date. Does that work? Yeah, no? Let's see that. Thank you. You see? That's why we live code. It's like a huge pair programming thing. Thanks very much. All right. So this is pretty much what the syntax would look like if I was trying to create this with JavaScript. And then if I wanted to append this to my DOM, I would pretty much just, leave me alone, I don't want to save. Let me think. Okay. So first I would have a function create post. And in this function, I would, sorry, this is equals to, yep. And in this function, I would have, let's say, const post equals to document dot create element div. I want to give the post the title, the class name of div, and then post dot inner HTML. Okay. And then we'll just take all of this here, because this is what we want inside the post. And we'll paste this here. And it'll kind of look something like this. And we'll pass in the parameters, title, content, and dates. So here we have title. Here we will have content. And then we'll have dates. Okay. And so basically with this, we have created a post div, we've given it a class name, and we put the contents that we want inside here. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take this post array that we created. First, I will delete everything here. Why can't I see that? Yep, delete everything inside here. Take this post array that we've created and then map through that post array. So what we want to do now is for every post, we're going to, oh wait, sorry, I forgot this part. And then finally, we want to append it to the post container. So this is just going to be post container dot append child and then post. Oh, Oh, what's the error now? Well, I'm sure there'll be an error somewhere. See, I'm not done. Chill. Okay, so we've had our post, and you want to create post with, let's say, post.title, post.content, and post.date. Yeah. So this is pretty much how we would create that same. Why does it not have the right? Right. It should be post. So this is pretty much how I would create the same thing that we had with HTML, but using JavaScript. So with this way, if I wanted to have multiple content, instead of needing to copy and paste my HTML, I'm just copying and pasting the content this time. So here I would have, this is another div and whatever. So with this, it gives me a lot more reusability than I had with HTML originally, because now I have more control over how the content looks, because the content is the important part. The rest of it doesn't matter so much. So this method right here is the general idea behind custom elements. It's removing the redundancy of HTML and making it scalable and reusable through JavaScript APIs. So this is the basic way of doing this using JavaScript. And now we're going to get into how we will do this using custom elements. So let's go back to the slide. So firstly, we have the custom elements API. The custom elements API it's an API that uses a method basically to create a new custom element class. When you're writing that in JavaScript, it looks something like this. If you've worked with React class components before, it's very similar. So you have your class custom components, and then it extends your HTML elements. If this was React, you'd be extending your React element. And then you have your class definers here. So this would be your constructor and your super or whatever. And then finally, we have the custom elements define. So this content here is the new HTML tag we're creating. And this variable here is referencing the class that we just created. So once we call this component in our HTML, it will render all the content that we've created in JavaScript. So yeah, custom elements are what allow us to define custom HTML tags. They render the custom HTML tag in the DOM, and they use lifecycle methods. So it's very similar to React, because in React you have component did mount or component did update. With custom elements, you have connected callback or append connected callback. So let's take a look at how we would write a custom element using that same, using that same blog arrangement we had previously. So I'll create a new pen. And this will be just for custom elements. Okay. So now we have our HTML. Just keeping track of time as well to make sure I don't go overboard this time. Okay, so we're going to have our div class equals to post container. I'm going to close this div, right? And then we're going to have our custom elements defined. So first, we're going to create a class post component. And we're going to have this extend HTML element. I'm sorry, I'm going to zoom in and just realize how tiny this would be. Yep, that's better. We're going to have this extend the HTML element, and then we're going to define our constructor and call our super. Super. And now we want to, so like I said, with React, we do have like component did mount. In custom elements, we have something called connected callback. Connected callback is what we use once we want the element to be added whenever the item is created. So here we're going to have the connected callback, and we're going to reference the class, that is this post class, as this. So we just want to set the post component as this.inner HTML equals to, so the same thing we had previously. We'll have a div class equals to post. Close that div. And then we'll have the h1 title and h1 p lorem ipsum and p and span 28th April 2022 and close this span. All right. And then finally, we want to define the custom element. So we go to our custom elements.define. We pass the name that we want to call it in HTML. So in HTML, this would be post component. Yeah. And then we reference the original post component that we've created here. All right. What's your problem now? Oh, no problem. Great. So we have our post container here, and then we've created the post component. Super on it. Sorry. Is that better? Great. So now once we call this new post component, fun. Of course it wouldn't work. Unexpected token. That's so weird. Sorry? Yeah, it should be a function, but it should, right, my bad. This should all be inside there. Because it should be part of the class. So after your constructor, then you put your connected callback. There we go. So with this, now we have the same content that we had previously, but now we've achieved that content using our post component tag. So whatever you call your post component tag as, you could render it anywhere. So I could change this to custom component, and this would be custom component, and it wouldn't work. But once you come here and you've changed it here under the custom elements definition, then give it a sec. Yeah. So that's pretty much how custom elements work. They allow you to define brand new HTML tags using JavaScript syntax. So the same way I appended HTML to my DOM before is the same way I am appending the custom elements to the DOM now. And the thing with custom elements is that you can see that I did not have to specify which class or which area I wanted it appended in. I can just use this component anywhere I want in the page. So if I wanted to have this in a completely different section, like, it would not matter because it's not tied to where I'm calling it from. It would just be elsewhere. So that's pretty much the idea behind custom elements. It's allowing you define new HTML tags and create your own HTML tags to allow you reuse them wherever you want in the page. And yeah, I think that's it for custom elements. We can move on. Back to this one. Switching back and forth is so fun. All right, slideshow. You've seen all of that? And then the shadow DOM. I really like the shadow DOM because it sounds very cool. I watch a lot of anime, and it sounds to me like in Naruto when you have shadow jutsu, and that's generally the idea behind it. The shadow DOM is a clone version of the regular DOM. And much like with Naruto, whatever affects the shadow clone doesn't affect Naruto himself. So that is how the shadow DOM works. It creates a cloned version of the regular DOM. Any changes you make within the shadow DOM have no effect on the regular DOM, and vice versa. Any changes you make to the regular DOM have no effect on the shadow DOM. So when we are creating our shadow DOM, pretty much in the same way that we had our custom elements, so with this, we're going to combine the custom elements and the shadow DOM. So yeah, you define your constructors and your supers. We create a new shadow DOM using this .attach shadow. That is the keyword that allows you to create. Where's my pointer? Excellent. That is the keyword that allows you to create the new shadow roots. And then once we have access to the shadow roots, we can append the children anywhere we want. So one cool thing about the shadow DOM is that most native HTML elements use some form of shadow DOM. If you think of a video element, for example, the reason video elements don't get affected by the styling of a regular page is because they are in a shadow DOM. And we'll just take a little look at that here. So if you're working with Chrome or anything, you can easily see where your shadow DOM would be. So I'm going to open a new tab, and we can go to, where's my browser? Let's just go to YouTube, because YouTube has a lot of videos. All right. No, leave me alone. I just always reject all cookies just for sheer being rude. All right, so if you go to your settings and you scroll down, under elements, you have this little toggle here that says show user agent shadow DOM. So first of all, let's inspect the element of any video tag. When we inspect a video, we just see it. I don't have to click one of these. This might be a good song. Let's see what that is. No, that's enough. All right. So yes, we have the video element here. So this is what a regular video element looks like in HTML. It's just a tag and there's nothing in it. But then when we go to our settings, and I'm sorry, let me zoom in so it's clear. When we go to our settings and then we enable the shadow DOM, if we go back to this element, you see that now it has a drop arrow, and inside that element, we can see what, sorry, keep forgetting to zoom in. There we go. So now this element has a drop arrow, and inside that element, we can see the shadow root. So the shadow root is what contains all the actual HTML that goes into creating your video tags. So yeah, if we delve a bit further into that, you can see all the content behind the video tag. So that is how it works. With a lot of native HTML elements like the video tag or the image tag, they're not just tags, they are custom elements that have their own set of definitions and functions, and they're just hidden because they use the shadow DOM. So that's why users can't get access to them. Yeah, that's pretty much the real use case of shadow DOMs, and now we'll see how we can write our own shadow DOM, which is fun. I'm going to continue with the custom elements we had previously. Yeah, if I go to full screen. Yeah, this should be fine. So in where we've previously defined our custom elements, we have our connected callback and we have all of this. We're going to come and we're going to create the shadow DOM in here. So super, and then let's go down here. And we're going to have this dot attach shadow, and this is going to be mode open. So the difference between an open mode shadow DOM and a closed mode shadow DOM is how it allows a user reference it. So with my company, we build Shopify sites, and a lot of Shopify sites come with a lot of iframes. So some iframes you're able to customize them according to your requirements, but some iframes you can't. The main difference between that is that some iframes have open shadow DOMs and some have closed shadow DOMs. If the shadow DOM is open, technically you can attach some form of styling to it by targeting the elements within that shadow DOM. If it's closed, you have no attachment to it. I think I can do a quick little demo and show what I mean, but I'll have to do that in Visual Studio Code. Just so we can see it on the, no, not an emoji. All right, so let's write this in HTML so we can, HTML. Okay. Control S, index. Oh, yep. Okay. Yes, and then we have the shadow DOM. So I'm going to be writing pretty much what we had in CodePen previously, but I'll be creating it inside here because it's easier to see within the browser. So I'm also going to create actually I can just have a script tag. Script tag. And let's take all of this. Let's put this here. Expected token. This is closed. What's your problem now? Constructor, super. Isn't live coding fun? I'm always like, oh, what could be the problem now? And I'll never know. This is so weird. Why is this not working? I'm just going to ignore it and hope for the best. Let's see. So if we call this element, let's change this back to post component. This is pretty much all we did in the CodePen earlier. Yep. That can be. Thank you. That's what it is. It needs to be inside the constructor. And this also needs to be inside the constructor. Yeah. Yeah, let's just do this for now. This should format. Perfect. Okay, so this should work. If it doesn't, well, we'll find out why. And where do I have this saved? Cannot remember where I saved that. File. Let's save this to desktop. There we go. Perfect. And now we can open this in Chrome. And it doesn't work because, of course, it doesn't. Let's see what's wrong with this. Should have the body tag. We have the post components. Oh, that's very interesting. So now we do have our element here. We can see that it's loaded fine in the DOM. For some reason, it's not loading on the page at all. Oh, wait, let me see. Right, the reason for that, I forgot the next part of the thing. So what we've done now is that we've attached this to a shadow. We've made this a shadow component, but we haven't attached it to anything. Because now that this is a shadow component, we've removed it from the main DOM. So right now, the shadow root is not attached to anything. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are attaching this element as well to our shadow component. So if we go back here, yeah, we can see that here is where we actually append the child. And if we try this here, oh, that's great. Hold on. Aren't live demos fun? There's a reason this isn't working. I'm not quite sure why. Let's go back to CodePen. But yeah, no, I will show what I wanted to show originally, because this is not the part that I wanted to show. So what we have here is that we have the post component and we have the shadow root and it's open. So if I come here and I target, let's go to the console. If I want to target this dot shadow roots, you can see that it returns a value. So what we have here is that we have the open shadow roots. But now if I go back here and I set this to closed, so if we come here and we reload the page, yep. Oh, my bad. Yep, if it's closed here, and we come back here and we reload the page, you see that it returns null. So that's pretty much the difference between an open shadow root and a closed shadow root. One can be referenced by the global DOM, so I can reference my open shadow root using JavaScript, but if it's closed, it can't be referenced at all. So yeah, that's the main difference between that. We're going to go back to the slides to talk about some more code. So yes, as we've seen, once the shadow root is open, now we've created a new shadow DOM element, meaning that if we wanted to append that, we would need to be appending it to the shadow root, because now it's been taken out of the global DOM. So that is pretty much how shadow DOMs work. They work like an iframe. So they're not part of your main code. So any changes you make to a shadow DOM will not be affecting the global code, and vice versa. Any changes you make in the global code will not affect your shadow DOM. It can set style and markup without affecting the global DOM. So we'll see that in the demo in a bit. And it allows you to interact with the shadow root. As we've seen, we can only make a change to a shadow root element by creating a new attached shadow class. That should make sense. All right. So let's go back to the one we had previously with the code, and let's see why that is not working. Unexpected syntax error. Right, let's have to move this in here. Okay, and if I change this, custom components, define custom components. Do I have time to debug that? I do not, I'm running low on time. We're going to move on to the next thing. Let's see, shadow DOM. Right, and then finally we have the HTML templates. So with HTML templates, it's taking the custom elements and taking the shadow DOM and then removing the need to define all that markup we were defining before. So you can see previously with our custom elements, we were defining this inner HTML. Same thing with the shadow DOM, we were creating the inner HTML as text. With HTML templates, the templates allow us actually write the HTML code on the page. So with this, I have my templates, and in my template, I'm putting my style, and I have all the information I want, basically. I'm going to go back to my laser pointer. So I have all the information I want in my HTML template without the need to specify it in JavaScript. So we're going to take a look at how we would write a HTML template and use that to render a custom element, which would be the final web component. So just talk a bit more about HTML templates. What they do is that they store reusable HTML content, and they include the encapsulated style in the template. That means I can put my styles directly in my HTML templates without having to have global styling. And finally, they use custom text in the slots. So let's see what a complete web component would look like using the concept of the custom elements, shadow DOM, and HTML templates. All right, let's go here. And I'm just going to copy and paste because I don't really want to write all of that. So here we're pasting this is the HTML template we just pasted. One thing you'll notice about HTML templates is that nothing is actually rendered to the DOM. So even though we've pasted this HTML here as HTML markup, it doesn't actually show up on the DOM. The reason for that is because the template syntax itself was not created to be rendered. Template syntax only stores content. So it's up to us to then take that content we've created and render it using JavaScript. So what we'll do is that we'll go to our JavaScript, and first we want to get the HTML syntax. So we have this, and then we want to this dot attach shadow. Want to create our new shadow DOM element with mode open. And then we have our connected callback where we create. So we don't need this inner HTML anymore because that's what we're using the HTML template for. So we're going to delete that. And then we're going to take this, let's just have like a const post. We want to create just one post element. And this will be equals to, we'll have a title. And I'll have hello world. Hello NDC Porto. Yes, make it specific. And then we will have our content. Content is always lorem ipsum. Okay. And yeah, that's pretty much what that would be. So now we've created our post content, and now we're going to get our template. So what we need to do first is that we will target the ID of that template. So we're going to have const template equals to document dot get element by ID, and we'll pass this into that. Yep. And then with the template content, so like we've said before, the template itself is not something that's rendered on the page, so we can't just get the content using inner HTML or whatever. To get a template content, you need to use the content keyword, because that's how we actually get it. So we're going to have const template content, and this would be template.content. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to clone this node, which just means we're going to create a new instance of anything that's in the template content. So we're going to have a clone node and pass this, not node, right? Clone node and true. And then finally, we are going to append what we just created as the template content. Okay. And where selector and child. Okay. And now let's take this part. And we've created a custom component. And let's call our custom component value. So that's how we have it. So basically what we did here was that we took all the content that was in this template here, in this style template, and then, so let's make this actually white, black. Yeah. I have to pass this in the div. First, close div, h1, h2, and span. Interesting. Okay, so basically we took everything that was inside the template class, and then we passed it into this custom component here. So when this was rendered, it took all the content that we had in here before, and then it rendered it as part of the shadow DOM. So if we do inspect this element, I'm going to inspect this real quick. Yeah, we can see that everything here is part of the shadow DOM. So our custom component that we just created that we're defining here, but you notice that the template, even though we did create this template and it has the same content, it doesn't get rendered on the page. It's rendered as a document fragment, which is not actual HTML. So that's basically the general idea behind web components. It's taking 3 different technologies. It's taking custom elements, shadow components, and HTML templates, and making reusable and scalable elements that you can use to define your own styling and your own functionality. So we can use this to create any number of elements. We can use it to create a custom button class. We can use it to create a custom post component, as we've done here. So that's the general idea behind web components. And yeah, now we're going to look into the second part of the talk, which is using it in relation with frameworks. Because, like I said, when I first started out, what I was looking for was something that allowed me have the reusability of React with the simplicity of HTML. But then let's look at how we can actually use them in combination with each other to have see all of that. Totally missed this part. Yeah, we're also going to go over a little benefits of web components and why they're awesome. So the first thing is that, yes, they allow you to use reusable HTML elements. Once you've defined your web component, you can use it anywhere else, and you don't really have to retype all your HTML over again. Also, there's no build process or no installation required. Because the web components are inbuilt with your browser, you can use them running from the ground up. All you need to do is use your APIs, and you can have them in any browser that you want. And finally, and this is probably my favorite reason, is because they are cross-framework compatible. So if you work with a company that, let's say, they use a lot of different technologies across multiple projects, in one of the companies I used to work with, we had a project that used Svelte, another project that used React, and one that used Nuxt.js. So the problem with that project is that our company was built using design systems, but when you design a component in React, you can't use that same component in Vue. You need to define a new component for that. So it's the same. That is where web components come come into play in a really useful manner because you can take the same web component and use it in a React project, a Vue project, or anything project. They are very cross-framework compatible. And then with regards to why they're not so awesome is because at the end of the day, web components are still a JavaScript functionality. When I was building my website, I was trying to make it not JavaScript dependent, which is the main reason I built it with HTML and CSS, because on the off chance that someone doesn't have JavaScript on their page, or if somebody has slow internet and it takes time for scripts to be added to the page, I wanted to ensure that they could still receive content. With web components, you have the same downfall that you have with React or Vue or whatever, which is that any content that people see on your page is dependent on them having JavaScript installed and dependent on all these scripts being added to the page at the first time. So yeah, I think it's pretty much a toss-up. It's like if you don't care about that, then that works fine and you can do that. So yes, frameworks versus web components. Which should you be using? At the end of the day, what is the reason why frameworks are more largely used than web components, even though web components give you this, well, similar functionality and less, sorry? Oh, that's not quite right. I mean, thanks for that, for your opinion, but that's an interesting point. I wouldn't say it's because they're older. I don't know. That point wasn't in my brain. I'll make a note of it. I'll look it up and I'll get back to you. But yeah, no, the point is React and web components were built to solve different problems. If you are using React, the simple point is that you do not need to use web components because you're using it and you have an intended use for it. You know, if you're building a lot of complex situations, like most of the companies I work for, we build e-commerce sites. I would not recommend building an e-commerce site using web components just because it would be a lot of definitions. Whereas with React, what did I do? One sec. No. Okay. Excellent. So whereas with React, you do get a lot of complexity, but then it's also a lot more streamlined. In React, I don't have to define my custom elements API, append things to the shadow DOM, and then append them to the shadow root. I just create my component, run my build, and everything runs in the page. With web components, I don't have to run a build. I don't have to install node modules. I don't have to have any of that. I just define my elements in my native HTML and they run on the page. So it's not a matter of which should you use, it's a matter of how can you use them together to kind of get the best benefits from both. So personally, if I was working on a React project and I had something that I wanted to be reusable somewhere else, that is where web components come into play. I could have my React component built like a to-do list, and I could have the post as a web component because that would allow me to reuse it in any part of the page I wanted to use it in. Yeah, both. Both is good. I always have GIFs because I want to use them everywhere. We can also see the cross-framework compatibility that web components has with most framework libraries. So let's take a look at that. So yeah, this is a really cool website that it just kind of shows you how you can use custom elements and web components in relations to which frameworks. So we can see that here with Vue, it has 91% compatibility. With React, compatibility is not that great, but with the new React, it's even better. And same thing with Angular, AngularJS, Svelte, Preact, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's really a matter of determining when you want to have a reusable and framework agnostic components, and then seeing how best web components can fit into that layout for you. Okay. And I think that's everything. Let's see. Yeah, that is everything. So thank you all very much. I left space so I could take some questions. If you do want links to my slides, you can find them here at jemimabo.com/talk/web-components. I also have the links to the code pen where I have the completely built part, so you can see that without any of the bugs. And yeah, I'll be taking questions now. Thank you very much.